tell that Gavin was a Monticello High School graduate. He has awesome classroom management, good stage poise, and knowledge is absolutely awesome. So welcome, families. We are here today just to try, hopefully, bring down any stress or anxiety that might be trickling or maybe rushing through your family, depending on your family. But that's what we're here for today, is just to provide support. This is a first layer. Obviously, we've been sending home lots of different types of communication, and we will continue to do so. Communication, not only are we doing the live chat here today, but by tomorrow I will send out lots of written information on the outdoor educational program, nature-based program. That did go out to staff today, and we always like to let staff chew on it for a little bit before sending the next piece of communication out to families. So, but we are here today to answer questions about all sorts of things, and outdoor education one will be definitely a topic area that we will address. We have a team here for all the different components of the Monticello Safe Plan, and so it won't be just Eric Olson up here. We have amazing leaders across the district. I'm so blessed to be part of this district and work with such amazing people. With that said, we're going to have everybody come up, introduce themselves, and say what they're representing today. And as Gavin and Sue monitor the chat, we will get the correct person in front to answer those questions. So we'll just make a snake through the room like we did last time. We'll start here with our business director, Tina Burkholder, and then you'll be introduced to everybody else on the team here today.
Good morning, Tina Burkholder, Director of Business Services, representing District Office, Food Service Protocols, and Cleaning Protocols.
Good morning, Linda Borgening, Principal of Pinewood Elementary.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gabe Hackett, the proud principal at Little Mountain Elementary.
Good morning, Lana Talberg, Assistant Director of Special Education.
Good morning, Clay Norman, Assistant Principal at Pinewood Elementary.
Good morning, Cindy Foshing, Director of Teaching and Learning for the district.
Good morning, I'm Matt Colwell, Assistant Principal at the Monticello Middle School.
Good morning, I'm Barb Wilson, Director of Human Resources for Monticello Schools.
Good morning, I'm Tana Kallenbach, representing the nursing, the health office. Thank you.
Good morning. Jeremiah Mack, Community Education Director, representing early ed through adult learning and facility rentals and childcare.
Good morning, everyone. Joe Dockendorf, Principal of Eastview Education Center.
Good morning. Monticello High School Principal Mike Carr.
Hello, I'm Jeff Hagley. I'm a member of the school board and just want all people in the community to understand that the school board is very interested in your safety and well-being, and so that's why we're here to represent the school board.
All right, and we do have Activities Director Gary Revnick, who has a meeting right now, but will be joining us as well. So we won't dip into any activities questions until a little bit later, unless it was a middle school activities question, and we will definitely be handling those questions as well. Hopefully by now everyone has received a Monticello Safe Schools. I have seen, I don't always go on Facebook, but I do once in a while get notifications that there are people wondering when that came out. If you didn't receive a Monticello Safe Schools plan, please contact the school that your child or children go to and make sure that addresses are correct. We use our database to contact all of our families through phone blasts, emails, newsletters, and we want to make sure we have your most current information. So that's one thing. And then also, I just wanted to start with a little bit on the different modes of instruction. So the different modes of instruction that you'll hear administration talk about, or teachers talk about, and pretty soon students talk about are when we're in person. That's what we're kind of used to. And then we also have something new that it's called hybrid. That means that at the secondary level, a student is in person for a portion of the week, and then they are distance learning for a portion of the week. And then we also have our distance learning, and that is when the county data gets us to a stage where it's not healthy or safe for our students to be in person. So elementary is a little bit different. In elementary, looks very similar. So K through 5 looks very similar in the in-person as it does the hybrid. And the reason for that is we use breakout spaces. We use different staff members to keep our ratios low. And the data that the state put out says that that is a viable plan, especially with the needs that our younger children have in early intervention and all the things that they're learning through school. So everything that we put together is used by using data and making sure that we put the most safe and the best plans for the future of your children. I would like to talk about instruction first. I would like to talk about instruction and what Monticello has been doing this summer. So Monticello this summer has employed over 30 people, mostly teachers, to work with our Director of Technology, Sue Height, and our Director of Teaching and Learning, Cindy Foshing, and then multiple other administrators to work with teachers to help these people be our first ever cohort to try improve instruction no matter what model that we are in. And this group of teacher leaders will take that knowledge back to our buildings and continue to lead instruction no matter what mode of instruction we're in. So last year's distance learning model was our first attempt, and it was an attempt, if you remember right, where the governor said we had 2 weeks to get ready for distance learning. Well, in Monticello, we had spring break for one of those weeks. So we really had 1 week to prepare for something that we had never done before. And I have to commend our teachers for what they did. I love what I saw. I got to do some Google Hangouts with a few teachers, and there was different comfortability levels throughout our staff, but each comfortability level with the distance learning kept increasing and growing. And the tools that we gained as educators and as professional leaders throughout the district was just amazing. Amazing growth was shown. That is going to be the different this year. And what I mean by different is what we knew then we didn't have much time to prepare for. What we know now is we're going to use teacher leaders to continue to improve our instruction along with our administration. So instruction is important. Instruction shouldn't be on the parents. The instruction should be, and we want it to be on our teachers. That's what they went to school for. That's what they're passionate about, and that's what they want to deliver. And so no matter what model is used, face-to-face instruction becomes very important, part of that. And that cohort will continue to push the envelope in our instruction models and continue to prepare our teachers to better serve your student and families. They have some more work to do, and the expectations of what's expected of each teaching model and of each teacher in particular teaching models will be unveiled and created by this group in the next session, so in about a week here. So we will continue to use that cohort to drive and to improve our instruction so that no matter what you're choosing, you are choosing the best instruction, because that's what we pride ourselves on delivering. And then just another reminder as I switch from instruction, and I'm going to start going to the questions, just a reminder for all families that the deadline for the 2 opt-in programs are Sunday, August 16th. And we need that information because that drives what we do on August 17th. On August 17th, the administration will be coming together to create class lists. those class lists then drive our staffing needs across the district. And our staff, they are itching to know exactly what they're going to do next year, because normally they know exactly what they're going to do a long time before this. So if there are any moms and dads who are educators out there, I'm sure you're shaking your head yes right now. You can't wait for your class list to come. It's always a big deal, just as it is for your kids. So don't forget, get your survey in this Sunday. We need that information to drive our class lists and schedules. All right, I think without further ado, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, and then I'm going to turn to the chats, and we'll start jumping into the chat box.
Yeah, the first question is related to the nature-based program. The question is, tell me how a typical day would look like for the nature-based, and how will they learn math?
All right. So I'm going to call a team of people up here to answer this, but I'll get it started. So we do have, the good thing is we're not novice at nature-based program. This isn't our first go-around. We planned for it back 3 years ago. So when I was principal at Eastview Education Centers, when we started planning for the preschool program, and then Mr. Mack and Mr. Dockendorf have been able to deliver that as an option for our preschool program. So it's very successful. I'll tell you, I'm going to have Jeremiah come up and talk about the preschool program, and then I will invite any other members of the team who's been planning the kindergarten through 5th grade nature-based program to come up. So Jeremiah's going to start to talk a little bit about what the typical day looked like last year.
Well, good morning. Nature-based education is, as you know, you'll spend most of your day outside. So students will arrive from the busing at their locations around 8:30 in the morning. They'll start their day at getting checked in, having a breakfast, either eating that as a grab and go outside, or eat in the chalets, or they're in their indoor facilities that they have options. Students then would pair up with like we do with preschool, they pair up with their staff. Then they start going through their day of learning activities based on what the teacher has planned out for them, doing math, reading, hitting all the core instructional areas that are required by their standards. So taking the standards and turning them towards a nature education. So if you're going to do math, is it how many leaves can you identify, counting bugs, insects, animal tracks. It's doing math differently. It's doing education differently. So it's very STEM heavy at preschool level and fun and interactive, doing stuff outside. They would rotate through their day. Obviously they have access to the restroom whenever they need. They're going on hikes. They're doing stuff out through the property based on what location they are at. Then they'd come down. If you're doing half-day preschool, you could go home, and mom and dad would pick them up. If they're doing full day, they would have a lunchtime, either eating outside if it's nice, or schedule rotating through the facilities and eating inside if it's rainy, too cold, or whatever the weather might dictate as they rotate through the facility. And then they'd be going back again outside, doing more learning activities. So the goal is to really minimize their inside time, taking your standards that you're doing, turning them alive, and using Mother Nature as your main resource, no matter how that is. So the teachers have to have stuff to bring out for the kids to do while they're out doing it outside. The elementary principal is going to talk a little bit more about how they plan to do some of the other core subject areas in regards to that. But then at the end of the day, they'd all be ready to bust it up by 2:20, and off to home they would go wherever they were going that day. So that's what I have. Or Cindy.
I think I can address some of the concerns maybe that you might be thinking about for the older students in the math curriculum as students get a little bit older, 5th and 6th grade, or 4th and 5th grade probably. Just so that you know, every one of our park sites will have internet accessibility, and so we will have technology on site as well. And every student, I don't know if you know this yet, can I say this? Yeah. Every student will have a device. So I think it's grades K through 2 will have a tablet. Grades K through 2, correct? Yep. And then grades 3, 4, and 5 will have a Chromebook. And so those students, even at our outdoor-based education sites, will have a Chromebook. And so we can deliver math instruction that way if nature-based learning isn't quite working with some of the upper-level math concepts. So we can solve all of those problems with math learning, whether we use devices or whether we use nature. So I think we're all set to go with that.
Another question about the nature-based program, asking how will it be structured? Would it be K1 and 2 at 2 of the sites, and 3rd and 4th and 5th at separate locations? And then there's a question about security at the outdoor sites.
Okay. So I'll take the locations first. First off, I'll just name all the locations so that we're all thinking the same way. So we are partnering with the city, and we are partnering with the county, and we are partnering with the YMCA, and we are partnering with the Lestadian Lutheran Church. So for this inside Monticello here, the locations right now are Ellison Park, are Westbridge, and we also have a contingency park location of the 4th Street skating rink. I know some of you are probably thinking I'm trying to run a hockey feeder program right now, but that's not it. It is when we looked and picked at these parks, we looked for security as the primary reason how we were going to choose them. And so looking for locked entrances, looking for heat, facilities, bathroom, looking for a space for our students to be able to stay dry if they need to. But like Mr. Mack was describing, they really are outside all the time, and even 4-year-olds didn't want to come in. We get them outfitted with state-of-the-art rain jackets at the beginning of the year, puddle boots, and then also most families either have access to great outdoor gear, or we definitely will help provide that too, but most families do have that. So we make the experience about nature, and then the locations. So I'm going to switch from the city to the YMCA. So that's out at Bertram, since 4th grade, since preschool is out at the Bertram Park. We also have the YMCA, and then we have the Lestadian Church, which is over in that Silver Creek area. So looking at what grade levels go where, and that's the team is going to meet. So elementary principals will be meeting on Monday, and we will use the information that you give us. Right now it looks like we will need to use our lottery system because we are already over the 250 spots that we have secured that we think we can have in this program throughout those locations that I already described. On Monday, we'll make those class lists, and we will continue then to build those lists and then add teachers to our team. And then once we get our teachers on the team, that's when we start furthering our safety protocols, which you will see as part of the written document that's going to come out by tomorrow. But safety protocols are a huge part of this. So some of the resources that we use are like the American Camper Association. People go and run outdoor camps and run education programs for a century. They really, this is a big part of some kids' summer, and we would be able to give this as part of our school district learning opportunity. And so safety protocols are a huge part of this. We've already partnered when we opened up Eastview and started planning for the nature-based preschool. We did site visits, so teachers did visits to, I remember Shakopee and Duluth, and then a couple other outdoor educational facilities, and we will continue to have the new team be part of those site visits as well. So safety protocols will continue to be created with teachers, but walkie-talkies for every adult. The adult ratio out at these places will be, right now we're going to lower our class size, and we're going to make sure that there are 2 adults at every site, because if you're going to operate like the American Camper Association and have buddy systems in all that you do, you have to do that right away from having at least 2 adults on every site. So safety will not go down, it will be just different. The buildings will become ours during the day. So all those sites that I mentioned, we get to use the building and put up signs to keep the public away from the buildings. And then, but yet, like the facility itself, the parks and stuff, they can be commingled, and they were last year with our 4-year-olds. But really, when you see a classroom using materials or doing something for what we noticed last year, people just kind of shied away and went and did their own business at a different part of the park. So, yeah. So that's the safety and also how we're going to do class lists. Like I said, the sites, we really can't say like, I can give you the team would say that we were going to try keep kindergarten out at Bertram with the YMCA because preschool's out there, so that would be some good partnerships, and it would be kind of like what Eastview is now. And then we were looking at the other sites depending on numbers, how to fit everybody. And that's the only one that I want to say so far because we don't know the numbers of students yet.
There is a question about if you choose the nature-based or any option, when can you opt in, and then when can you opt out if it's not working for your child?
Yeah, so the answer to that is we were going to try use quarter breaks. And I just learned this when I became superintendent, but as an elementary principal, that wouldn't have came up in my brain. I would have just, we always just took them in whenever, and 3 days later they were in a new seat. But in secondary levels, middle school, high school, there are some classes that really are, content driven, and not starting on a quarter break clean can be a little bit more challenging. So we are going to try use quarter breaks across the district, but please know that number isn't like a hard rule number that we're never going to deviate from. It's what we aim to do, but yet we want to meet your needs as well as a family and student.
For nature-based, will parents drop their child off at the location, or will they be bused from the elementary school?
I'm going to call up another member of the team because you guys will get really sick of me, but here's Clay Norman.
Hello. So yeah, we're pleased to announce that there will be busing to the nature-based sites. So there will be a route. So more information will come once we have our registrations in.
There's another question about school supplies. When will a list of school supplies for nature-based be available?
We're in progress.
I would talk about assembling the teachers and having them be part of that.
Absolutely. So very good question. So that is a work in progress. Right now we have to get our registrations in, and then we'll be able to staff for those positions. Once we're able to get those teachers together, then we'll be able to work on a list and get that out as soon as possible.
And then another question too, a parent asked, if one of their students has opted in for nature-based learning, will all their kids be opted in?
We haven't had that discussion just yet. You might want to take that one.
As we make class lists, there are going to be a lot of things to consider, and so we will look at that as one of our criteria, just to, because the school bus times are going to be a little bit different, and we want children from the same families being at bus stops together. So just a new announcement, hopefully you caught it in the SAFE plan, but kindergarten gets its own preschool, all-day preschool, and kindergarten gets its own route this year. And we've never had that before. And so what that does for our teachers in the kindergarten, preschool, and elementary levels is those students don't have to go to their community school, get off, and go on a shuttle bus. And we were getting good at that. It's not that, that's a deterrent for us, but it is pretty special to be able to just get on one bus. I think it makes the day a lot easier start and finish for our students in all-day preschool who need transportation and our kindergarten students. And so that route is going to be specifically for, the kindergarten, preschool, and nature-based school is going to be on one route together.
Does that include the walking area?
The walking area, yes. So great question. So because we're transporting past the community school, so the sites aren't the community school anymore. If you are selected through the lottery system for the nature-based preschool, you will be picked up and brought to the location of that school, because now your school is in a different location.
And another question to follow up with all that, where is the half nature and half traditional classes taking place? Are those taking place at the school or another location?
Mr. Dockendorf did some research and has been working with some of his teachers to prepare for this 50-50.
Excuse me. So when you think about a 50-50 classroom, it's not going to necessarily, it's not going to necessarily be nature-based. We are asking teachers that are going to be a part of the 50-50 classroom to craft a schedule that gets their children outside half of the day without masks. They're going to be looking at what works best for them. They might sprinkle in some inquiry, exploratory kinds of things, fitness, socialization, but every schedule could look a little bit different.
This is another question about the 50-50. Is there a lottery for this as well?
No, there is not a lottery for the 50-50. Once we see the numbers and start to create class lists, we are asking and starting to recruit and starting to get our teachers to get on board with rethinking a little bit of their educational day as Mr. Dockendorf selected. And what that does, it just really gives teachers that opportunity to talk without a mask or shield on. It gives students a break from that. I know from the talking to people who wear masks all the time, having a little break from it feels pretty good because you can get dehydrated, and I think that little break is going to be well accepted across the district. And so we're encouraging starting the training process of just rethinking the school day a little bit, and all our teachers will be exposed to that type of training and philosophy.
Here's another question related to elementary. If you choose online learning other than Chromebook, will materials be provided for elementary, middle, and high school students, or is everything strictly going to be online?
I'm going to call up Mr. Colwell and describe the middle school program, and it's a program that the middle school has been, they practiced over the summer. All of our elementaries practiced what we're going to look more like this year. So I'm going to have Mr. Colwell explain.
Speaking for the middle school, we were able to send some information home to some of our students. I don't think entirely online technology-based education is best, and so we will do our best within reason to try and send materials home in a fully distanced setting. In a hybrid setting, obviously our kids are in every other day, so that helps us, but we do know some students don't learn best off of technology entirely, and so we do want to be able to send some materials and information home that are hard copies and get that information in front of students so that they can excel. Thinking through the middle school lens as well, our schedule is going to be very similar day to day, we hope, between a hybrid and a fully distance learning or even in-person model. And so the routine and connection with their advisor is a big part of what we'll lean on as well.
So this is another question related to distance learning in the middle, specifically the middle school. Who will be teaching the middle school distance learning classes? Will it be the teachers who normally teach them? Are advanced classes, especially math, offered via distance?
Much of that will be determined by how many students are going to sign up for register for fully distance learning. It could be that some of our in-house teachers right now will be teaching students live for a couple sections and the online students for a couple sections. If the numbers are bigger, we may dedicate a full-time math teacher, for example, to teach all the students online. I think it's really going to be driven by the number of students that register for the online learning option.
Yeah, and this is also related to distance learning. Will your child have one teacher with a regular class size? Will that teacher be assigned to just one grade level to instruct? And this is probably elementary, an elementary related question. If you choose distance learning, will your child have one teacher with a regular class size?
Linda Boarding from Pinewood Elementary. Again, it kind of goes back to what Mr. Colwell is saying. Until I know the registration numbers and the needs of kids in that program, I'm not quite sure how we're going to put everything together. We may have enough first graders that sign up that will have a first grade teacher, but maybe we have not enough first graders or second grade and we do some type of a combining. But that's decisions that will be made next week based on our data.
And switching gears back to nature-based education, can families that need magic adventures before after-school care still opt into nature-based education?
Yes, I also talked with the bus company, so they can come before school and after school to Magic Adventures at their traditional home school. So they would, if you're at Eastview, you just pick Eastview as your site, or Little Mountain or Pinewood based on that. And I did get permission from the principals and the bus company, so that is an option.
And back onto distance learning. If we are focused into distance learning or choose to do distance learning, asking more for the choice, can we create meetup groups within the classrooms for face-to-face time similar to homeschool?
Yeah, I think what we learned from our first go-around and practice at distance learning is that, we can do it better. I remember looking at our principals and leaders, district leaders at one meeting, and we talked about seeing the elementary students get boxes delivered in other towns. And we noticed that some teachers were having an extraordinary amount of classroom time with Google Meets. And we noticed that maybe some of the classrooms, maybe people who were more comfortable with technology right out of the gate, were able to incorporate lots of different differentiated styles of instruction. And then as time went on, we all started building those toolboxes. And now as the summer builds, that is one of the last steps is to create expectations for what each class is going to look like. And those expectations, like I said when I opened, are going to be created here in the next week. But we will do distance learning better. We will do it for, we will do it with, instruction from the teacher. That's their passion. That's their content. That's what they want to deliver. It'll be less of log on here at this time and for attendance and get these list of things done throughout the course of the day. It will be more about a regular school day, no matter what grade level.
And continuing with distance learning, can we form distance learning pods with classes so kids can get some connections and relationships made?
Sure. Yeah. I was just hearing on the radio last night that word right there, distance learning pod, and there was a Swedish name for coffee, but I'm losing the name here right now. But that is a big deal with the online learning and distance learning groups, is to create pods of smaller communities so that kids get to know each other in the small groups, and then when you go into larger groups, it doesn't take as long to do a morning meeting or things like that. You can do little small breakout sessions. So a lot of teachers are finding ways to differentiate and streamline different parts of the day that they are used to doing in person. So small groups, definitely instructional and behavior management strategy that we will incorporate in our distance learning.
So we have a couple of health-related questions for either you or our school nurses regarding lab-confirmed cases. Besides contacting those in close contact, what are additional steps, if any? What are quarantine requirements? Will COVID testing be supplied to those in close contact?
So when there's a positive case, Minnesota Department of Health will contact us, or the parent will contact us first. It all depends on how swamped they are. And then we will assist them in determining who the close contacts are, and they will also interview the family. And we're going to have to go a case-by-case basis. Each case will be different and unique, and we'll just have to interview and find out, if they were with their cohorts the whole time, if anyone had speech, and we're limiting mixing, so they're trying to stay with their cohorts as much as possible, so contact tracing should be fairly easy. Hopefully that answers the question.
There's a question about face shields versus face masks. Can kids use a face shield instead of a face mask?
Yeah, so last week, the Minnesota Department of Education and Minnesota Department of Health, each week they have a meeting with superintendents, and they really clarified the exact information. So the information that you're reading, I can give you exactly what it means. So students are asked to wear a face mask. So, lots of different styles out there. Wear your face mask. If a face mask is something that you feel like you can't do, anxiety or something that just hinders you from being able to perform to the best of your ability, you are able to wear a face shield as that second option. But since it is an executive order by our governor, when we are in the building, a face mask or a face shield is required for students in kindergarten and older.
And switching gears a little bit, are families able to move from the different learning sections throughout the year? Example, from nature to hybrid or distance learning?
Yep, we will continue to get people into the right programs. So that's what we're trying to do to start out the year. And then as a family, you may decide that the program that you were in wasn't working for you, or maybe you want to, we will reach out as opportunities come available for like nature-based. There might be people who leave that program. So there will be opportunities to switch into it, and we will retain our lottery list. But the answer to that question is we want to get kids into the right learning modes and get them comfortable and being successful. So you can switch. We're going to try use quarter breaks as our times and places to do that switching. But if something happens where you really need a faster switch, we'll work with you and your family.
And going back to nature-based education, is there a chance nature-based programming will start to require masks?
Yeah, that would have to be, an executive order or something from MDH. But right now, what we are our guidelines are and what we're following in our activities in community education-based summer programming is that if they're outdoors, they do not have to wear masks unless they are in close proximity of a person for an extended period of time. And I believe that period of time, if I remember right, is...
They have to wear a mask if they go into the facility.
Yeah, I think the outside time is 15 minutes if you're within the 6 feet. But then when you do go into the facility, because when Cindy Foshing came up, she talked a little bit about there will still be one-to-one computers. We will still keep up our skill level in all the other areas that are expected of our students. So there will be some indoor time, but so when you are indoors, you would have to wear a mask or a shield. Plus on transportation, transportation is a key for all of our students to be wearing their mask. That allows us to be able to get kids to and from school safely.
And continuing with masks, can kids use face shields instead of face masks?
Yep, so some of these are, I don't know if they're repeat, but so first order, you wear a mask. Second, if you can't wear a mask, the mask is what they're saying is the best. But if you can't wear that, a face shield is a okay alternative. And then the third option is actually distance learning. So if your child can't wear a face mask, face shield, the teachers and principals will work with your child, but if in the end they just aren't able to wear that, then distance learning becomes our third option for families to offer.
Kind of stop with the masks and go. If secondary starts in hybrid and the decision is made to move in person, what is the timeline for that? And can you opt in to distance if not comfortable with full in person?
Yeah, once again, we'll get you into the right program. The timeline is, so county data comes out on Thursdays, and we will use that, and it's always in 2-week increments, and so we will try make decisions that last 2 weeks or longer. We know that consistency is great for kids. That's why our building leaders put together new daily hours that reflect both in-person and hybrid learning across the district. And we will try keep that consistency factor at the forefront of our decisions. So there may be a time where we choose maybe a more restrictive model if there's a chance that we could stay in that model longer. But if you look at the data in Wright County and Sherburne, we would have never had to go to distance learning ever since it's even started in March. So I looked at the data last week, and I think the data, as it ebbs and flows, it still it wouldn't have put our district into a mode of instruction where we had to all be distance.
And a health-related question. If my child shows symptoms during the school day, will they be notified to come pick them up?
Hello, Tana Kallenbach again. Yes, if your child is showing symptoms of COVID, so a standalone symptom would be a cough that changes in intensity or duration or shortness of breath, then they will be placed in a separate room and you will be called immediately, and then they either need to go in to be tested, which is what we prefer. But if they give a differential diagnosis of, say, seasonal allergies or strep throat or ear infection, then they can come back as long as they don't have a fever for at least 24 hours without fever-reducing medication. Otherwise, if it does come back, if they test you and they think it's COVID, then you would have to stay home until you get the test results back. And then at that point, we would start the investigation if there were close contacts. And so it would be 10 days if you are positive. And then other siblings, it would be 14 days. So that's the current information we have from MDH. And we've been on a call every Wednesday getting updates. So as things change, we will definitely be at the forefront of that. And we're very, very fluid and abreast as to what's going on.
Okay. And a question on distance learning. If a high schooler chooses distance learning and they want to work during the day, can they do their school later in the day, or will they need to be online certain times of the day?
So I'm going to have each building, I'm going to pause here after I answer this question, but I'm going to have each building come up and each program come up together and give a little overview. But the answer to that question is, the good thing for high school students is that we have shrunk your day. As we have at all the buildings, and we believe that will reduce some of your stress. It will also allow you additional time for work and hopefully activities as well. So this isn't the shortening of the day, we feel will have positive effects well beyond COVID. If we find out that we need to increase the day back as the years go on, we will do so. But right now, we feel there are enough positive reasons to have this shortened day, and one of them is to meet the needs of our students at the higher levels who do want to do some work and look for one of their first or second jobs. So I'm going to have, we're going to start with the high school. So high school and activities are going to come up. I'm just going to kind of give a brief overview of their programming, and we've kind of practiced this already at 9. So we'll do the same thing here for all of our families.
I'm Mike Carr, principal at the high school. And our distance learning will definitely look a little different than it did last year. We will expect more of an in-class presence. We'll offer classes at certain times, and you'll need to check in during that times. If there's a reason you can't get to a class for a day, we will try to put it on a Schoology where you can view the class later. But you will be expected to be a participant in those classes on distance learning. I think last year we called it crisis learning. We were thrown into a situation that we didn't know a lot about and how to deliver it, but I think we got better at it over time. So this year it's going to look a little bit different. It'll be true distance learning, more online. You're going to be expected to be in classes. If you have a schedule that you need to work, we'd ask that you look at an OJT option or something like that. If you're a junior or senior, we're going to put some programming out that will allow you to attend only periods 1 through 4, and then you're able to go to work at an earlier time. Our schedule's going to be shortened. It's going to run from 7:30 to 1:45. Our day will be over sooner. So if you have a work issue or something like that, if you communicate with us, with your teachers, we can perhaps work something out. We're going to try to be as flexible as we can to provide options for all our students. We're truly trying to hit that mark every kid every day. So with that distance learning option, again, expecting you to be in class, but we will work with you to get things done. Our hybrid schedule will also go from 7:30 to 1:45. And that will, again, expect students to be in class at their given time. We'll have 40-minute classes that are scheduled, and we will allow some time in between to pass to a different class or that kind of thing. But you'll be expected to be in class. Again, we'll run all 7 periods of our day during our hybrid schedule from 7:30 to 1:45. Lunch will be split between 9th and 10th graders and 11th and 12th graders. Our 9th and 10th graders will eat in the first shift, while 11th and 12th graders go to their homeroom. During that time, we're going to provide social emotional learning. We're going to provide news updates. We're going to provide study habit training. We're going to provide a lot of an informational delivery system that we'll use during that time to give you some of the things that you need to exist in a hybrid style learning. So we're going to try to get you as much of that information as you can, with a big emphasis on social emotional learning, just because we feel the mental health and emotional health of our students is paramount in the hybrid or distance learning system. So again, our 9th and 10th graders will eat first. Juniors and seniors go to homeroom. We'll switch halfway through. Juniors and seniors will go to eat, and then the 9th and 10th graders will participate in their homerooms. So those are the different kinds of schedules that we have. If we can do anything to help your child learn, we want to do that. We're going to be as flexible as we can. Perhaps it's an attendance issue on certain days. Work with us, communicate with us, and we're going to do everything we can to remain flexible to deliver our lessons to every kid every day. Introduce Mr. Gary Rebnig, our Activities Director.
Good morning, I'm Gary Rebnig, Activities Director for the Monticello School District. We are moving forward with high school activities at this time. If we are in-person learning or in the hybrid model, we will be having activities. If we are forced into the distance learning because of COVID numbers that reach a certain level in Wright County, then at that time activities will be put on hold. I noticed a question earlier in the chat about if you're in online school, can you still participate, or if you're in distance learning, can you still participate in high school activities? Absolutely. If you're in the distance program for our school district, you are still eligible to participate in all school activities. If you choose to be in an online program not affiliated with Monticello High School, it will just depend on what online program that you are in. Some are approved for activities, some are not. I highly recommend that you stay in the Monticello School District with the options that we are providing right now, and there will be no question about eligibility. So if you have questions on that, if you are looking at other online programs, please give me a call in the activities office. My direct line is 763-272-3101. Starting here on August 17th, we do have 6 sports that will be starting next week on Monday. Girls tennis, girls swimming and diving, boys and girls soccer, and boys and girls cross country. We also have, it's a unique year for everything, including activities. We also will be offering volleyball and football training, and those 2 sports have training during 3 weeks. I'll be sending out information on that, posting that on our website, but football and volleyball training will start on September 14th and end on October 3rd. At least as of today. And then starting on October 5th through October 24th, all spring sports will have 3 weeks that they can practice. During that practice time for volleyball, football, and our spring sports, they can have up to 12 practices. We will need our students to register. We will enforce all high school league rules and bylaws at that time. So something very unique this year for the 2021 school year. As far as sports, our coaches will be working together and communicating and trying to meet the needs of all of our student athletes. And we are encouraging 4 sport athletes this year. So the sport that is in season has priority. And like I said, we're encouraging kids to get involved and to stay involved here at Monticello High School. I'm sure you're going to have questions. Feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call at the number that I previously stated.
Given the time we need to move to special education, there are several questions about special education. What does special education look like for kids? Will their instruction be unique? Will there be home visits? If a Google Meet setting isn't working, what will C5 look like?
Okay. I'll start with home visits. There will be no home visits. So we will not be sending any of our staff into homes. We're required to meet standards for our staff that keep them safe with social distancing and cleaning protocol, and so there won't be any home visits. As far as services go, all the way from birth up to 21, those services are individualized, and each child has their own plan. Each family will have the opportunity to meet with the case manager and revisit the plan and talk about what that might look like weaving in and out of the different scenarios. And the last question was about C5. And can you repeat that piece of the question?
Yeah, what will C5 look like?
Oh, C5 is our 18 to 21 program, and that will look very similar because of the space we have and the amount of students and staff we have. We should be able to run C5 in a very similar manner, just with using social distancing and masks.
If the state, this is related to special education and masks, will special education students be required to wear masks?
So we are still waiting from MDE for guidelines on that. Because if they do have a disability and it is impacting their ability to wear a mask, we are not able to suspend students for that reason. However, we've talked with our case managers and we'll continue training them on the fact that this is a learning skill, that they're going to have to be taught how to wear masks, how to social distance. They're going to have to role play. They're going to have to practice and practice and practice. And so we'll continue giving them reminders. But as I said earlier, we're asking parents to practice wearing masks at home, and we're also going to look at each individual student and possibly shorten days if they're not able to wear the mask for the whole duration.
Okay, so this is back to a process question about if my middle schooler gets quarantined due to close contact exposure, does my high schooler need to stay home as well?
Yes, so if one of your children is sent home, then the rest of the family also has to be sent home that are in school, and we have to wait the test results.
And another question, this is in regard to the gifted and talented programs. What will that look like this upcoming school year?
Sure. I can talk a little bit about gifted and talented. So when you look at gifted and talented, we have established teachers with established training at each of our elementary schools. And so those, that type of training and that type of delivery will continue. When you look at our nature-based education, the inquiry model and the art of curiosity will be one of the foundations of that program. Both skills highly promoted in the gifted and talented program. So we will continue to try and maintain our gifted and talent program throughout our elementary buildings as we have as I said, we put money in towards training our teachers. We don't want that to go to waste. So we will continue to do the best that we can to support the gifted and talent programs, along with all of our specialty content areas. So yeah.
If our elementary principals could talk about their day. There's also specifically a question about if elementary distance learning is chosen, will there be opportunities for students to meet their teachers and classmates in person throughout the school year?
So I'm going to invite the elementary principals up. They're going to talk about their day and then answer that question.
So I'll start by talking about the Little Mountain Day, just a quick synopsis of what the schedule is going to look like, or maybe how it's a little bit different. So we are going to, when the kids come off the bus, we will stagger the buses as the students come in. The students will go in different doors, so grade levels will have assigned doors. Breakfast will be in classrooms, so it's kind of a grab and go breakfast. First and second grade are able to eat in the cafeteria at different times and separated, so we have time to clean. Third, fourth, and fifth get to eat in the classrooms this year. And we're going to do our best to keep the in-person and hybrid models as similar as possible so that we're not changing schedules for the families. Things may have to get a little more restrictive when we move into the hybrid model by following the guidelines set out by the state, but for the most part, we're going to keep those schedules very, very similar. At Little Mountain, we are working on a way to change our dismissal process. Right now, we have families coming into the building, and so we're working on changing that a little bit. More information coming on that as we continue to work on it, but that's a general look at what our schedule will be like at Little Mountain.
Yeah, and our schedule at Pinewood is pretty similar to what Mr. Hackett has explained too. We haven't made a final decision about lunch, if it'll be in the classrooms or in one of our larger areas. As we get more data, we'll make that decision. So I agree.
I'll step up and talk a little bit about East 3 Education Center. One of the things we're real excited about is the fact that all of our kindergarten students are going to be bused to and from school this year. That has not happened in recent years. And then it brings kind of that for just how do you start your day? And we're going to do our very best to have kids trickle into the building so they're able to be spaced out and social distance. When we think about breakfast, that will be in the classrooms. When we think about lunch, that will be in the classrooms, and that food will be delivered to those classrooms, so there won't be any, going up and down the hallway with trays or anything like that. We will be having specials. We're excited about that. And when we talk about specials, on a normal year, we have STEM, and we have Phi-Ed and music. This year, we do have our music teacher out on leave to start the year, so we'll be beginning the year with 2 Phi-Eds and 1 STEM on a 3-day rotation. We are asking those specialists to teach outside every opportunity possible until we have weather issues. What else would we want to talk about? Oh, recess. Let's talk about recess a little bit. It is our intention to have our kids spread out immensely out on the playground. We'll only have 3 classes at a time on the playground equipment. All other classes will be designated to green spaces. Anything I might have missed?
There is one question Mr. Hackett's going to answer regarding developing relationships with teachers and other classmates.
Thanks, Sue. The second part of that, the question for elementary scheduling was about meeting the classroom teacher. So regardless of the learning scenario that you're in, that could be distance learning, it could be the online option, in-person, hybrid, whatever scenario we're in, we are going to run welcome back days at the elementary schools just like we always have, except we're going to extend that time. We feel like the relationship building and the social emotional well-being of our students and families is of utmost importance, especially now. We haven't seen our families in a long time. We want to take a little bit of extra time, not just to meet our teachers, but get an idea of what our day is going to look like depending on which learning scenario we are in. So we're going to extend those times. We're going to have 3 days of welcome back days versus 2, extra time with our teachers. and then a little bit of time in between each individual conference so that we can do some cleaning between to keep everybody safe as well. And like I said, that it doesn't matter what learning scenario we are in, we're going to have opportunities to meet our teacher face to face. Families will also have the opportunity to do a Google Meet or do an online meet if that works better, if they feel better, more comfortable with that option.
Thank you. We have some questions about COVID testing. What's the expectation of the parent? And will a parent be notified before a COVID test is given to a child?
Right, and we have not been given any directive that we will be testing any students at school. I think the confusion came because word got out that staff would be provided a test that they can do at home, a saliva test. So if a staff member is concerned, then they would request that, it would be mailed to them, and they would mail it back, and within 48 hours, they would receive the results. So that's for staff only. We will not be testing any students. We have not been given any directive to test students at school. And if we were, we would make sure that we would notify families ahead of time, and there would be a protocol for that. But that is not even on the horizon at this point. But if you have one of your children at school, if we're concerned that it might be a positive for COVID, we would call you. But just keep in mind that seasonal allergies and colds, they have very similar symptoms. So if we do not have on record that your child has seasonal allergies, if you could please call us. Just leave a message on my voicemail or Monica Schwickerath, who's high school and middle school, so that we have that information. If you have a child that, they couldn't sleep the night before, they're not themselves, they're feeling fatigued, but you know that it's because they were up all night, please call us and let us know. Any information like that will be helpful. If a teacher sends in a student and they're, oh my goodness, they are so fatigued today, they're not themselves, we will have that information so that we can make a better decision. But we will definitely be calling you whenever a child is brought in and we're suspect that it could be that. And then it would be nice if you could take your child in to be tested, but if you decide not to have them tested, then they would have to stay out for 14 days. Thank you.
Are there temp checks for staff and students before entering the building?
No, so staff, because they're adults, we will be discussing with them their responsibilities. They need to check their temperature before they leave the home. If they feel like they're just not themselves that day, something is coming on, it doesn't have to be a fever, because now we've learned that only 40 to 50% of people have a fever when they do end up having COVID. So it's not what we initially learned, that it was 80% or more with a fever. And that's just part of the piece. There are so many other symptoms, a lot to figure out. But we're deciding on how to work with assessing students. I know that some districts will have, and we're not doing this, but I know other districts are doing where they have an actual screening tool that you walk through that lets them know if someone has a fever, and we are not at that point. And since that is not the biggest symptom, the cough and the shortness of breath, but the cough with change in intensity and duration, not just any cough from allergies or having a cold. So there's a bigger picture, not just a temperature. Thank you.
I'm just going to jump in one thing on then Mr. Colwell is going to come up with the middle school schedule and activities. But just as far as health-related questions go and health-related movement as we go forward, please know that we can really do a lot for our town, and we can really do a lot for our kids by staying home when we're sick, keeping our kids home when they're sick, trying to live a healthy lifestyle, eating balanced meals, getting enough sleep. Like, we've been preaching this as a school system for a long time, and now is our time where we can reset a lot of things. You'll hear me talk about reimagining education, and companies that reimagine themselves right now, they're doing well. Well, as a school system, we are going to reimagine ourselves. We're going to do things. We're not going to take COVID and roll over and be less of a school system. We're going to take COVID, we're going to change what we need to change, and we're going to be a better school system. And one of those things is taking care of ourselves. I know that as adults, we're oftentimes awful role models for our kids because we go to school, we go to work when we're not feeling well. We can do a lot for society right now by staying home when you're sick, washing your hands, taking care of yourself. So let's reboot that right now. It's our opportunity to do so. Do it now, practice those things so that we can keep our county healthy, and we want to be in school with your kids. And so there's a lot we can do from now until September 8th. So please do that.
Kind of just give an overview of a number of things middle school. I saw a number of questions on there. Just to speak to activities real quickly, we are going to offer a couple middle school activities, not all of them that we want to. We're going to follow the high school's path with regard to boys and girls soccer, girls tennis. We have 2 7th grade through 12th grade programs, girls swimming and cross country, which we hope to offer. Now, our practices do not start early necessarily like the high schools do. They typically start when school starts. But those options are being worked on, and there will be more information coming. As you know, we are not hosting our back to school day. Typically that's held next week. And so the transition into this year will look very different than it has in the past. Much like the elementaries, we'll have some days set aside in the first week of school, the Tuesday through Friday after Labor Day, where we're going to work on transitioning our families into school differently than we ever have. And so that will include parent, individual, student meetings with our advisors. We're going to lean heavily on our advisory period, which we call M&M. In our schedule, students will be in M&M twice a day. They will also eat lunch in M&M for social distance purposing. So M&M is going to be a big part of how we work with families to transition into our middle school year, and on a daily basis with regard to the social emotional curriculum Mr. Carr was referencing, and more importantly, the connections, getting to know our students, because we know connections are kind of the foundational piece, the relationships to any kind of learning. So that will be a big part of our schedule. Currently, right now, we're planning on that hybrid schedule where students are in school on an every other day basis, either Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday, Thursday, depending on the group that they're assigned. Friday would be a distance learning day for the most part. Some students may be coming in. But those students would follow a full schedule, a full 6-period day schedule for about 45 minutes per class, meaning they would have all of their specials and all of their core content when they're in the building, as well as when they're not in the building. And so some of those questions about the musics and Phi Eds, those things would continue when students are not in the building. We're going to do our best. Those teachers are very creative, did an outstanding job with what they could last spring, and they are going to build on that momentum here this fall, and as long as we have to follow that hybrid schedule. So that was a question. I saw a question on new students coming in. Mrs. Olson, our counselor, will be reaching out to new students and families here in the next few weeks to hopefully get you in small groups, probably individual groups, to get a tour and to make sure you feel connected with your advisor as well, as the go-to person for working you into the Monticello Middle School, a new building for you. And so that will be coming up as well. Sue, were there any other questions specific to middle school?
I think you have answered most of them. How about sports that already have some distance? Example, trap shooting. I know that's not middle school, but it's related to a sport.
Yeah, and the question comes up in my mind too, will those students have to be wearing masks? As much as we can, we want to be outside in our day, but know that most of our learning will probably take place inside. But speaking to M&M and some recess time and before school starts in our M&M period, if our students can get outside on a nice day and take those masks off and distance themselves, keep in mind in a hybrid model, we only have about 20 kids per M&M, and if only half are in the building, it's a small group, and we feel confident we can get people spread out to alleviate some of that time with a mask on outside. I think some of our athletics, same way, if they can do that safely, they will, as much as is possible, without breaking any state guidelines.
There's a question about lockers that applies to both the middle school and the high school. Will middle school and high school kids have lockers, or are they going to be expected to carry things back and forth?
At this time in the middle school, this may change, but we are planning on allowing students to have lockers. We probably will restrict the amount of traffic to and from the locker. We don't think it's reasonable, especially in the winter months, to be storing all that stuff in a classroom, just with the spacing factor. We will be staggering passing times, so students who are not all going to be in the hall at one time between classes, and then also restricting their hallway use before school. So we're going to be requiring them to be assigned a space before school and not just kind of do the mingling thing that we've always done. Just thinking through the amount of restrictions we can use reasonably to keep students from gathering in large groups. But at this time for the middle school, I think we are planning on using lockers.
And another question for you, Mr. Colwell. What does distance learning look like for middle school?
Distance learning, fully distance learning, would be similar to the model we used in the spring, not in the learning sense, but just in the sense that you'll be assigned to your teachers. You'll be assigned to an M&M. Depending on how many students are opting for the distance learning, that's a big factor there. You may have just one teacher who teaches all the distance learning per subject, or you may have a teacher who does have some in-person students and then one section or two sections of fully online distance learning. And that is part of the cohort Mr. Olson was referring to, teachers who are really digging into how to do that best. We know we were rushed into it in the spring, and we feel like we can do it a lot better. And so that would be an option for some middle school students to be, high school students to be fully distance learning. And they will be connected to staff through the school as much as possible, and it may be that we'll be sending materials home to them as well. It's not all necessarily going to be via a Chromebook.
So related to that, but for students who are full-time, will they be provided the distance learning processes and websites early to reduce interruption going from in-school to distance?
That is an outstanding question. Like Mr. Olson said, in all of our models, we've always, at worst, been in a hybrid fashion. We want our kids in the building. So at this point, most of our energy has been focusing on the hybrid model, but we do know there will be some students who are fully distanced as well. And so the time and energy we're spending on keeping that up to speed too, we are not necessarily planning on all students being distance learning here to start. And so we're taking that kind of one day at a time, but I know we will be prepared for that. And I don't know if there's another caveat to that answer.
I think on the 17th when we make class lists.
Yeah, so families, that survey is going to be wrapping up on the 16th, and then we can really dig into that information August 17th and kind of take our next steps to see where we're at with numbers.
There's several questions about distance learning for the elementary schools. What will distance learning look like in an elementary setting?
So I'm going to address distance learning as that's a choice that you've made for the whole year. And what we're looking at is, I think, Mr. Dockendorf, maybe you didn't talk about this, but one of the things we learned from summer school this year is that just using Seesaw or a learning management system wasn't enough. Superintendent Olson talked about doing Google Meets and some live instruction, and also sending objects home. So right now, when we're thinking about distance learning, we know there's going to be a live meeting where all the kids in the classroom will be together. There'll be some live instruction. And then we're thinking they'll move into an option, they may do a small group over online with the teacher. They may be assigned, Mr. Dockendorf and I may be assigned to a small group, so we're going to go and work together over online. And maybe Mr. Hackett is going to be assigned to do work, because we're going to send our consumable workbooks home. We're going to send books home. We're going to send manipulatives home. So we think they'll do that cycle twice, and then they'll have a lunch and a recess break, and then some activities to do in the afternoon. So I think there will be a lot of the live teaching, there'll be a lot of contact between the teacher and the students to students, and I'm really excited about this program as we start this out.
And a question for distance learning. Oh, do you use no more? Sorry.
Should I move?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
For distance learning, this is for middle school and high school. How will it work if a student is in orchestra and band and chooses distance learning?
Orchestra and band, and even some of the electives that may be more hands-on type. We're going to ask our teachers to get very creative and do what they can. They did some things last year, and if you happen to see our graduation, our band and choir put together an amazing piece where all the performers recorded themselves at home, and they put it together for a beautiful rendition of the songs they performed for our graduation. So we are asking our staff to get creative and provide programming for all subjects and all students. That's some of the options that they came up with last year. We visited with each department every day last spring, or excuse me, every week on a different day last spring. And some of the ways our art department, music, all the fine arts, industrial tech, all those people got so creative in delivering their product. Their education was amazing, and that's what we hope to continue with, even more and better, bigger and better, so to speak, this year as we provide that distance learning. So that's going to be up to the teachers, and we think they're going to deliver in fine style.
Right, another question for you, Mr. Carr, in regard to the A and B structure for the secondary hybrid model. How are groups A and B chosen? Can we pick which works best for our child and or family?
The A and B will be chosen after we determine how many students are choosing distance learning, so we know what students will be a hybrid. It will be divided alphabetically, and we would prefer to stay with that alphabet. If there's a special reason for families to stay together or that kind of thing, we will look at that on a case-by-case basis. But we're probably going to be staying within that alphabet, just so we know the numbers of students that we have each day here and can prepare safely for the students that are in our building.
And another question too, to go back to the band and orchestra. Someone asked, can you clarify hybrid is the only option for actually this is hybrid, never mind, sorry about that. Can you clarify hybrid is the only option for middle school and high school? Or is it the only option?
Are you talking band and choir?
I just misread it. It says, is hybrid the only option for middle school and high school, or are there other options?
Well, there's full distance learning if that's what you choose. That's an option. The hybrid learning is the only in-person option that we're offering right now on an A/B schedule. So those would be the choices that they would have. So.
And I think just a reminder that, like, I started out the program talking about the 3 instructional models. So, the county data is going to guide what instructional model we're going to use. But we could be all in person, depending on the 2 weeks worth of data. We could be hybrid, like Mr. Carr is talking about, or if our data would spike to a level, that we would need to go distance learning, we would do that. Just to give you a historical perspective, since COVID hit, like in March here, and we were suspended in the 2020 March year, since that date till now, our district would have never been in full distance learning using the 2 county data, Sherburne and Wright. We would have been able to maintain in-person or hybrid. So even when you hear our county with spikes, the spikes haven't reached a level that would have forced us out of either in-person or hybrid. So that's good news. And the information that I shared a little bit ago about staying healthy, we can really do our part. Like, keep being healthy, keep encouraging hand washing, wear your masks in public. Let's get our kids to school, at least in that hybrid model, if not fully in person. But it really takes a whole community effort. And then speaking of just like community and effort, I really want to emphasize, as I listen to the leaders talk about their programs, and I heard Ms. Borgen say, I'm excited. Like, we are excited no matter what model we're going to be in. Like, school is fun, and we are going to make it fun. And when you choose Monticello, you are choosing relationships, and you're choosing relationships beyond the classroom. We are committed to delivering whatever model we need to. We've been working on all of them. And when we've also met with schools like Minnetonka and Elk River, who have bona fide online schools in order to better our distance learning, we wanted to see and learn from school districts that have been doing it for years. And so we met with those in order to get procedures and to get different steps that we can take to make our programs better. We have done that, and we will continue to do that. So choosing Monticello, you're choosing a relationship, and you're choosing a great program. Sometimes when you go to an online program, fully online, what we have, if I would ask the counselors at the high school or middle school a question of how many times do people who leave our school district and go online, how many times do they come back? It's about 90%. They usually come back, because a lot of those online programs are, you get your list of work and you just do work. There isn't the interaction and the relationship that we pride ourselves on. So every kid, every day means every kid, every day, no matter what program.
Any others for the high school on up here, Gavin?
Nope, there is not.
All right, thank you.
Well, I just want to thank all of our families who are online today. And as I look at all the people sitting in front of me in here, I couldn't be more proud to work for the Monticello School District. We have a school board who absolutely supports making our programs and making each of our school buildings better. And the leaders that are in this room right now, and the leaders that are our teachers and all of our non-certified staff, cooks, custodians, paras, secretaries, and our teaching staff, and we absolutely are passionate about what we do, and we can't wait to get your kids back no matter what model. On August 20th, August 21st, we will announce the model that we will begin the school year with. But like Mr. Colwell was talking about, we know already that first week of school across the district is we're going to turn up the dial and go slow so that we can get kids back in. We can do some assessments of their social emotional needs. We can look at where they left the school year content-wise. We can get people back in slow. If I was a marathon runner and I hadn't run for 5 years, I don't think I would just jump in and run a marathon. We want to go slow to be able to go fast later. So that's exactly what we're going to get to do this year. So the calendar change, that whole first week, well, you're going to watch your building schedule. Each building's going to send a schedule because each building has their own unique schedule to that week. So please be on the lookout for communication from the district, but also communication from the building to fully describe what that first week is, along with the great news of who your classroom teacher is, which will be coming soon. Class schedules will be coming soon at the middle school, high school. Like I said, August 17th is a big day for all the administration. They will be working together to help each other create class lists according to the data that you must fill out by August 16th. All right. Well, if we could, everybody at home, you guys have seen me do a magic clap before. Magic clap is one loud clap on the count of 3, and we're going to do it as a community right now because the magic community is showing a lot of grit and strength as we prepare for the school year. So magic clap on 3. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.